All right. We have our 100. So others should be on YouTube by now. Uh, all right. We have our 100. So others should be on YouTube by now. Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Good
Good
evening,
evening,
sir.
sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
I'm just hoping we have a very fast class, and in like 30 minutes, we should be done with the class. Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Good
We
evening, sir.
just hoping we have a very fast class. Okay, without wasting much of our time, yeah, I think the YouTube face is also off now. I cannot admit again. It's more than 100, right? Unlock user and able. Oh God. So let's start today's class from where we stopped. We stopped at question one, which was, what was the name? I think Sedeco or something. That was the name. And then I mentioned there's one other question I would like us to go through together. And after that, I already dropped a question on the class group. That will be like an assignment or practice question, not technically assignment, because most likely there will not be correction. So it's just like a practice question. And please remind me in case I forget at the end of the class, I will give you a number that you can always text your solution to, so that I will put it through in case you get anything wrong. And again, I will make sure I give you the diet that the question is, so that if you are right, you can just go on and check the solution. So you don't need to come to my DM again. But if you feel like there's a part that you don't understand, then you are always free to text the number. So that will be at the end of the class anyway. Why is the request being rejected? The class is full. Sorry, let me respond this person. The class is full. Join it, so please. Okay, now let me share my screen now. Minutes. Okay. Please, someone should confirm when my screen is up.
It's up now.
The
Okay.
screen
We
is
can
up.
see it now, sir.
Uh, I think by now everybody should know that once you are late, you will not be able to join Google Meet again. You are just to go to YouTube. There's no point texting me. There's nothing I can do from my end. Oh, so did I share the YouTube link? Oh, I think that's the problem. I don't think I did. Uh, Sorry. Sorry, please. I'm just trying to tidy up every end, so that we don't leave some people behind. So, okay, yep. The link should be on all groups now. Okay. So let's go back to the link. Yeah, I dropped my screen. I dropped it. Can someone confirm my screen is back up?
Yes,
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 please.
sir.
yes, I can
Okay.
see. It's up
All
here.
right. Good. So yeah, good evening everyone once again. We just move straight to this question, and then I will use this question to I mean the last question we solved and this question are the two ways I can set activity based question. When you are good with these two questions, I mean I don't think there should be any question, be it past question or future question that you should not be able to tackle. Though it's oftentimes it comes as that first one compared to this second one. This is just when they try to be tricky or they want it to be more technical, a little bit technical. So let's read through the question together. Then we also solve it together. And while I'm reading the question, you might want to get your pen or and your book or something, because question A and B will be treated, you will have to treat it on your own. Then I will start where the tricky part starts, which is question C. So yeah, they said XYZ Nigeria Limited is considering the use of activity-based costing approach in its overhead recovery. The company manufactures two products known as standard and deluxe. So details of production for the two products are given below. So we see we have the annual production in units. We have 24,000 for each. Direct labor time per unit in hours. We have 4 and 5. Number of special parts. We have them there. And here are your activities as well as their cost drivers right in front of them. And it's the question says, okay, this is the total overhead here. You have 2,665,600 naira. And the question said, you are required to A, use the traditional approach to determine the direct labor hourly rate for the company. Now, technically, when they say direct labor hourly rate, they are simply asking you to calculate the overhead absorption rate. I think somebody asked this question in the last class, but still the same thing. They are just asking you to calculate your overhead absorption rate. So in this is 9:11, in 2 minutes, 9:13, I want us to calculate what our overhead absorption rate is. Please just drop your answer in the comment section. Don't unmute. Just drop your answers in the comment section. And those of you that, okay, I should zoom. By now, everybody should have the question. It's on the group. It's only the solution that I expect you to find difficult to get. And is this okay for those that are on YouTube? And Michael Chimamanda, yep, I will drop the slide today. I should have dropped that, but I don't want to drop our solution earlier. So I want to believe we are all solving already. Or let me do my usuals. Kafayat, your hand is raised. Do you have a question?
No. Sorry, I was answer.
Okay. Uh, Michael Chimamanda, did you just join the group? If you just joined the group, you most likely not have it because it has been sent since last week, I guess, or even last 2 weeks. And Chineye, just increase your video resolution or video quality. I want to believe the answer should have started flowing now. Okay. Can't see your screen. I can't see your screen. I want to believe everybody can see my screen now. All right. Please, you guys should just increase your screen resolution. I thought we've gone past this is not clear on YouTube. Okay. Yeah, the time is up. I can see people dropped answers already. And yes, the overhead absorption rate should be 12 naira 34 kobo. And how do we get that? I'll just do a brief through for those that were not in class or if this is your first time. So we need to calculate. Do I call it again? We need to calculate our overhead absorption rate as per the first question. Now, the first question says, when we are trying to calculate our direct labor hourly rate or the overhead absorption rate, please mute yourself if you are the one. I muted you before. Why did you unmute yourself? I have to come back. Okay, so the formula says that it should be our total overhead cost, which is the figure we have right here, the 2,665,600 naira, divided by the total labor hours. Now, the total labor hours that we are to use is not given in this question, unlike the previous ones that we've been doing, that there will be a special column for total. So here, we don't have that. So in that case, we have to calculate our total labor hours ourselves. So and how do we do that? We multiply the labor time per unit by the annual production. So if you do that, or times the annual units, if you do that, you should have 4 times 24,000 for standard, as well as 5 times 24,000 for deluxe. So I think 24,000 times 5 should be that should be 120,000 hours, while for standard labor should be what do we call it this time?
96,000.
96. Yeah, 96. So in total, we have 216,000. Thank you for the response. So we should have 216,000 hours And our total overhead once again is 2,665,600. So if you divide 2,665,600 divided by 216,000 hours, then you should have 12 naira 34 kobo, just as we have it in the comment section. I did not pay attention to those on YouTube. Did you drop the solution? Okay. Yep. Only one person, but yeah, you're correct. 12 naira 34 kobo. So question B says that if you still don't get it, you can stay till the end of the class. After we are done with the solution, it will just be a general question and answer on activity-based questions, and then we know we are done with the topic. So question B says, use the direct labor hourly rate to compute the overhead rate attributable to a unit of standard and deluxe products. That is the simplest, one of the easiest 2 marks that you can ever get. Once your question A is correct, automatically your B should be correct, because what you have to do is just multiply the 12 naira 34 kobo that we got in question A. You multiply it by hours per unit for each one of them. So 12 naira 34 kobo times 4 for standard, 12 naira 34 kobo times 5 for deluxe, and there we go. So now the main due itself, which is very obvious, because for I count to attach 10 marks to just a section, you should know something is up somewhere. Is us okay. I have to forward the slide again. So yeah, people are not paying attention to something. So give me a minute for those that are asking for the question. 1, 2, 3. Everybody should have the question by now. Okay. So now they said determine the cost driver rates using the activity-based costing approach. Now, as usual, we have to follow the 5 steps, which the first one is identify all the activities, which are clearly stated here. So we have setup costs, special part handling costs, customer invoicing costs, material handling costs, and other overheads. Step 2 says we should identify the cost drivers of each activity. So each one of them is attached to its cost driver. We have setup cost, the number of setup, special parts, number of special parts, and all and all. So step 3, we are supposed to do cost of activity divided by total number of setup. Now, for this question, number of setup, right? So how many setups do we have in this question in total? It's a question to the class. Just from the question, how many setups do we have?
8.
8. Do we have any answer?
Why do I get the feeling that you know
Good.
someone?
5.
Standard.
Standard.
What
Well,
are
the other
those
one.
setups?
All right. Let's just go on. Now, have you ever wondered why most of the time we have to multiply labor hours or machine hours and we don't get to multiply the rest? We just add the rest. But when we are talking about labor hours and machine hour, we say we multiply. There has to be a reason for it. And the only reason that we have is the fact that they usually come with the word per. they will tell you direct labor time per unit, direct machine hour per unit. Now, anytime you see the word per, it means that you cannot add the figure in front of them. It is not possible, because they are telling you that these figures that we have here is a multiple of something. So now that we have number of where is it again? Number of setup per batch. It means that who is this, for Christ's sake? Who was it? So it means that these 2 and 6 that we have right here, they are just for a single batch. Now, it will make sense to add if we just have 1 batch of standard and 1 batch of deluxe, which is not so. We don't have 1 batch of standard, and neither do we have just a batch of deluxe. If my can anyone on YouTube just help me type the process of increasing your screen resolution or your video quality, so that those that are complaining that it's too blur can just get it? Because I'm also tracking it from here and I can see my screen as clear as possible. Okay, so let me switch to the slide with the solution. So we see that number of setup, I mean, for CDR, so cost of activity should be divided by total number of post drivers. Now, for setup, should be setup cost divided by total number of setup. But the setup they gave us was not just setup, unlike previous questions. Let me look at the previous question now. So, look at the previous question. They just mentioned okay, this is just production. Now look at all of them here. They gave us number of production or number of components received, number of this, number of that. None of them were mentioned that it is per. But this direct labor and labor cost, you will automatically know that they are per unit, because when you look at their total, they do not tally. Same with this machine hours. That's why this does not include per, because there was a total column. Assuming there was no total, they will indicate here that it is per unit, per unit. So that is why this is not coming with per, just in case you're wondering. Now, the rest, if you add them up, you will see that they give you this exact figure. Assuming there was a total column in this question too, you will realize that the total that you have here will be way, way greater than this 2 plus 8, 2 plus 6, and all. So how do we now go about that? What you have to do is as simple as multiplying your setup times the number of batches. You multiply your setup by the number of batches that we have. Now again, we have to look for the number of batches. Let me just chip in this. In all part of activity-based costing, anytime you see per, you are just to multiply what you have before the per by what you have after the per. Simply put, multiply setup by the number of batches. Here, multiply sales invoice by the number of years. Here, multiply separate material issued by the number of batches. Do you understand? I hope we understand that. So now let's go again. So we need to know how many number of batches do we have in this question? Looking through the question,
good evening.
how many number of batches? Yeah, who is that?
Yeah, for the standard we have 12, while for the deluxe we have 240.
Okay, thank you. So how do we get the number of batches? From this question, some could have mistaken this batch size unit as the number of batches, which is not the correct answer. You know, we are looking for the number of batches, but they gave us the size of the batch. Now you cannot tell me because I told you that, let me say, I'm telling you that there are 12, what's basic example? Okay, there are 12 sweets in a sachet. And I told you that, oh, I produce 1,200 sweets. Then how many sachets did I produce? So this is like that situation now. They produce 24,000 units and they are telling you that, oh, we are producing 2,000 in just one batch. Now, the question you now ask yourself is, how many batches of 2,000 would they need to produce to get 24,000? So that brings us to, we're looking for the number of batches that we have in the question. So the number of batch should be the total number of units divided by the batch size. So for standard and deluxe, both of them, we have 24,000 units produced. And what is the size of the batches? So for standard, we have 2,000 batch, 2,000 per batch. And then for deluxe, we have 100. So if you divide these two, you should get 12 batches for standard and 240 batches for deluxe. So now that we've gotten the number of batch, you note that we are not stopping with the number of batches because we only need the batches so that we can multiply it by our setup. So you now go ahead again and do the multiplication. So we now need to get the total number of setups in the question, which will be the setup per batch multiplied by the number of batches. So they're telling us that for standard, we have 2 setups in a single batch. I mean, for a single batch. And for deluxe, we have 6 setups for a single batch. And from our calculation, we can see that we have 12 batches here and 240 batches here. So in that case, so if we need 2 for a single batch and we did 12 batches, so the number of this should not be number of batches. So this should be number of setups. So number of setups that we have should be 2 multiplied by 12, we have 24. 6 multiplied by 240, we have 1,440 batches. So the summation of everything should give us 1,464 setups. So in that case, we can now go ahead and calculate our CDR. Since we have the cost of, we have the setup cost, and we now have the total number of setups. So our setup CDR will be equal to 585,600, which is in the question, divided by 1,646 setup. So we have 400 naira per setup. So that is that. And with that explanation, I think we'll be able to skate through the rest. Now, looking at the special part handling costs, they said the cost driver is the number of special parts. Now, if you come here to look for the number of special parts, we were told that the number of special parts that we have here is per unit. So it means that for every one of standard that you produce, you need 2 special parts. And for every one of deluxe, you need 8. So we, like we did for setup, we have to calculate our total number of our special part again. So since it is per unit, it means we are multiplying our special part by our unit. So 24, 24, 2 and 8, then you have 48,000 special parts for standard and 192,000 special parts for deluxe. When you add the two, you get 240,000 special parts. Then we can go ahead to calculate our CDR once again, which is 480,000 divided by 240,000 special parts. So that gives us 2 naira per special parts, and that is that. So for invoicing costs, so we have sales invoice issued per year, 104.80. But if you check my solution, I just did the 580 like that. Can anyone tell me why I did not multiply it by anything, despite the fact that we have the word per?
Because it is for the year.
It is for the year. Yep. Obviously, it is for the year. But why didn't I multiply?
I think it because irrespective of the units produced, we stated that it was the year.
Huh? I cannot hear you.
I mean that
I cannot hear you.
irrespective of the units produced, we stated that the invoice issued was just for the year, irrespective of any amount of units produced. Sir.
Okay. All right. Now the thing is,
All right.
Sir,
the thing is,
is it
okay.
for the standard? This thing we got 24 times 2. Is it 48 or 480,000 for that standard?
This 480,000 is from the question. See it here.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So, okay. Now, the reason why I did not multiply is, yeah, actually, I did multiply. But in majority of questions, when it comes to ICANN, you are dealing with just a single year. You are trying to allocate cost for a single year. So if I'm telling you that, okay, this is the number of batches, let me switch the question. This is the number of invoice per year. So technically, I'm just telling you that this is for 1 year. So if I want to multiply, I'll still multiply it by 1. So at the end of the day, I'll still get the exact figure. So just in case they change this to probably per month, so you automatically know that you have to multiply it by 12. Do we all understand now? So it is because they use year. If they had used per day, so you can assume a 365 days, or you can use 366. That's at your own discretion. So you multiply it by the number of days. So if it is per month, you multiply by 12 and on like that. So, but since the question we are dealing with just said it is per year, they already gave us per year already, and we can only have 1 year in a year. So multiply by 1, and then I arrive at my figures, which is still the same thing as the 104.80. So I have 580 invoices in the year.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Please, sir, where is this stated in the question that it is per year? Can you help me, please?
See it right here. Number of sales invoices issued per year.
Hello, sir.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I think your network is back. All right. So the fourth one, material handling costs. He said the cost driver is number of batches, and we don't need to do double calculation again. We already have our number of batches while we are trying to get our setup. So if you so you can see here, we have 12 and 240, which should give us a total of that will be 252 batches.
Okay, sir.
So now coming down here, so we just divide 504,000, which is the cost of material handling costs divided by the total number of batches that we got earlier, 252. We have 2,000 naira per batch. While for this other overheads, they said the cost driver, because the cost driver is labor hours. And you remember when we were trying to get this A earlier, this overhead absorption rate, we already calculate our total number of labor hours to be 96,000 and 120,000 hours respectively for standard and deluxe. So the total should be that will be 96 120, that's 216,000 hours. So coming down to the solution, you can see the 216,000 hours right here. And like I mentioned before, if you still don't understand how I got this 216, you can hold on to the end of the class. So when you divide 864,000 by 216 hours, you see that we have 4 naira per hour. Now we are done with question C, and there's a cheap 10 marks. And then the last part of the question says we should compute the overhead rate per unit of each product using activity-based costing approach. So simply put, you are just to allocate. Now, actually, this question was just it was repeated last diet. This is not last diet question, but it was repeated last diet. I think they twisted a bit. It's slightly, very slightly. So you can see I can do test pass question. Now, after this one, you can go and check the last diet question and attempt it. I think you will be fine. You will do just fine now. Okay, so the last question said we should compute the overhead hourly rate, and like we do, we just allocate. And how do we? Who is there?
Yes, yes, you are there.
Okay, so after we've gotten our CDR, we know that the next step is to allocate. And for us to allocate, we just multiply our CDR by the number of cost drivers. So when you multiply, so you look at setup. Our setup that we got here was 400 naira per setup. So that's why I got the figures here instead of going back and forth again. And then we have to multiply by the number of cost drivers. And like I mentioned before, you only multiply by what you divided your total cost of activity with in the first place. Now you remember, we did not divide by the addition of 2 and 6. So never should you multiply back by 2 and 6. You go back to where you did your division. So in this case, we multiplied by the addition of 24 and 1440. So when you are multiplying again, make sure that you multiply 400 by 24 and 1440. So you have your answers right there. So same thing is applicable to special handling parts. We did not divide by 2 and 8. We divided by 48,000. Okay. Sorry. Why do I have number of batches? Yes. So we divided by 48,000 and 192,000. So again, we have to multiply by, if you multiply 2,000, 2 naira by 48,000, you should have 96. If you multiply 2 naira times, what's the other figure? 192,000, you should have 384. And like I've said, like I mentioned in the last class and the one before, the addition of these two figures should give you the figure that you allocated. Now, if we add 96 and 576,000, that should be 585,600, if I'm right. So now let's go back to the question. Yeah, we are correct. 585,600. The addition of these two should give you that figure. So let's test for special part handling costs too. 96,000 plus 384,000. This should give us 1. That'll be 480,000. So exactly 480,000. So check again for customer invoice. So we have 400 naira per receipt. So if you multiply by 100, you have 40,000. If you multiply by, I think the other one is 480, then we have 192,000. Now you might wonder, why did they give us number of separate material issued per batch? It does not concern you. It is as good as useless. It's not all figures that we use when it comes to EM. So because sometimes I feel like, why am I not using this figure? This thing will have something to do. Please, if you don't see any relevance for the figure, just ignore and return it back to icon like that. So material handling cost 2,000 multiplied by what was our was number of batches, our cost driver. So multiplied by 12 and 240. So you should have 24,000 and 480,000. So the addition of which should give us 504,000, which is exactly what we have right here. So and then the last one, the other overheads. So 4 naira, this should be multiplied by 96,000 and this should be multiplied by 120,000 hours. So we have that. So when we add together, we should have this. And the same way we've been adding up and we are getting our figures. When you add up these total overheads too, you must arrive at 2,665,600 naira. Can someone quickly confirm that we are correct? 2, 6, yeah, 6, yeah, 5, yeah. I think we are good. Yep.
Yes, we are good.
Then,
Correct.
so this is in total. But remember, the question said per unit. So if the question had said compute the total overhead overhead costs for each product, then we will have stopped here. But since the question said they want it per unit, so in that case we go ahead and divide by the number of units produced. So in this case, okay, it's not clear. I think there might be a need for maybe one day
Sir,
because of
the line is breaking.
huh?
I said the line is breaking. We hardly hear you, sir.
I guess it's your network, but or can anyone confirm it's the same thing from their end?
Yes, sir.
Is the same?
It's a
Yes,
network,
sir.
sir.
Oh, is it my network or can you
Your
hear me
network,
clearly?
sir.
It's
No,
student
like
My
network.
hand too.
I can hear you very
okay,
well.
okay. I just want to be sure it's not from
I
my
can
end.
hear you very well.
All right, thank you. So yeah, that is how to calculate the cost per unit. Now, I don't want to know what the question will look like, but as far as this activity-based costing, if you follow all the steps that we have mentioned, right from the first class to the second and to this particular end, I don't think you should encounter any issue with the question. So yeah, I can say we are done with activity-based costing now. So we can open the floor for any question, but if you feel you are well and good, you can exit the call now. But oh yeah, I think I want to mention something. Yeah, yeah. You can all still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes,
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 sir.
yes.
Oh, okay, good. Now for this question, though is all the same anyway, this one just has extra story. They're just explaining to us why this one is because blah blah blah, which of course we don't need. So the only difference, mute yourself. So the only difference, and I think this is the only question that also has this difference, is the fact that Now look at our labors in this question. I think this is the only question that we were not given labor hour in per unit form. Now read carefully, you will see that they wrote annual. So in that case, you are not to multiply by the number of units again. I think that should be clear. I just say I should bring it to your notice. So it is already in annual. That means they've multiplied it already. So you don't go ahead and multiply 500,000 and 5,000 and get like big figure. Then you come back and you see that your AR will now be as 0.00 naira, something like that. So because your labor is already in hours, I mean it's already in annual form. So you don't multiply again. So that is just the only new thing. So if you look at the requirements, you are required to calculate the total profit, which is something that we did in the previous example. So your total profit will be your selling price less raw material less direct labor. So of course, somewhere in the question they should tell us how much labor is paid per. Okay, yeah, see it down there. They will tell you how much labor is paid per hour. So this you multiply by this. I believe this one should be clear. And then they said you should calculate it either using the existing method, which is the same thing as the traditional, or using activity-based costing. So, and again here, they said write a report to the director of SADET evaluating the labor hours and activity-based costing hours in circumstances of SADET, refer to your calculation. So simply put, you are to talk about the advantages of each one of them, and then you recommend which one is better. So you can tell them the traditional is easy, it is less expensive. You don't need to be calculating extra. But activity-based costing helps you to allocate cost in a more logical way. It gives you room to calculate the profit on each product and on and on. I think we went through that in the first class. So yeah, that is just everything that we have on activity-based costing. So yeah, I will stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, sir. You
And
say we should
open
remind you
for questions.
for number.
Yeah, I will drop that in the group. I cannot drop that here. I will drop that in the group. Okay. So yeah, if you have any question, now is the correct time to raise your hand to signify that you have question. It might be from the first slide or from the second question, first question, or this question. Anyone is welcome. Okay, Victoria, you can go ahead.
Yes, good evening, sir. Okay,
Good
please,
evening.
this section, the A part of the question, I don't know how you got the answer. I've not, this is my first time in PM class, so please, I don't know if you can still explain how to get
Oh,
the A part.
this
Thank
is
you,
your
sir.
first time. Okay, all right. Okay. What I just say, walk with me, Abby. I'm coming. Let me try to copy this. Okay. Uh, sorry, give me a minute. I want to bring up.
Okay,
So total hours is what we're looking for. Okay. Yeah, please confirm when you can see my screen.
I can't see your screen, sir.
Yeah, I'm coming. So how about now?
I can't see it still. Okay, I can see it now, sir.
Okay. Now we are trying to calculate our total labor hours, right? Now look at the question. The question gave us labor time per unit. So that means For every one of standard that we produce, we will use 4 hours. Abi? And for every unit of deluxe that we produce, we are to use 5 hours. Now, let's be practical. You said for me to produce this product, it will take me 5 hours, or let me say 2 hours. I don't want to use the exact figure. And then I told you, please, I need you to produce 24,000 of these products for me. Now, I now ask you, how many hours will it take you in total to produce the whole 24,000? So it's simple mathematics. You just say, oh, since I know that 2 hours for just one, so to produce 24,000 is definitely going to be 2 multiplied by, what do we call it again? 24,000. So in this case, I would just say for this is 4, while this is 5. So you multiply by the number of units by labor hour per unit. So this should be 96,000 hours, while this should be 120,000 hours. The total of what should be 216,000 hours. So yeah, is that good now? Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
sir.
So yeah, to answer Michael's question from YouTube, coming. So I said to calculate your total profit. To calculate your total profit, you know, everything that we did today, we only circled around overhead. But of course, overhead is not the only cost we incur while producing. You have to also incur direct material, which is what we have here as raw material. You have to also incur labor costs. You also incur other direct expenses and all. But as far as this question is concerned, we only have raw material, labor costs, and overheads. So you are to calculate, okay, this is my raw material. They already gave you naira per unit already. So you know you are spending 4,000 naira on raw material per unit. So you look for how much is labor, how much am I doing? Let me see the question. Did you ask us per unit or in total? Oh, is now look at this question. It's saying total. So that means I don't even need to go through the per unit. So for me to calculate the total amount I spend on raw material, I have to do 4,000 naira multiplied by 5,000 units. So that is what you spent on raw material. Your total selling price too, 25,000 times this figure right here. So your total labor costs too should be, you use 500,000 hours. Now the question said labor hours are paid 15 naira per hour. So if they are using 500,000 hours, so you have to multiply it by 15 naira, then you get your total amount spent on labor. So, and then you use either ABC or overhead to calculate the overhead cost. So your total profit will now be selling price minus raw material minus your direct labor hours minus your overhead, and then you get your answer. So I think that is clear, Michael. Okay, is this Amiola Omotola? Go ahead with your question. Omolara Olashope.
Good evening, sir.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
here.
good evening.
Yes,
Hello, good evening, everybody. Okay, can I go ahead?
Okay, go ahead. I think
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, initially when you started the class, I was having issues with the screen. So by the time eventually troubleshooted it and I scaled through to seeing the screen. I couldn't jot down anything.
So the slide will be shared. I will drop it immediately
Okay,
after
sir.
this.
All right. Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So yeah, Omolara Olashope, you can go ahead.
Okay, sir. I want to get the clarity between traditional and ABC method. So for this question that we just solved, the OAR that we got initially for labor hours, is that what we are going to use to apportion if we were to use traditional method?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that we don't need to go through looking for total number of setups and the likes and the likes.
When you are dealing with traditional has nothing to do with your number of setup, blah blah blah. It has nothing to do with your course drivers. It's only after your labor hours. And I guess you were not in the first class.
I was actually, but I didn't get it. I wasn't fully in the first class.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But that's because that's the problem that activity-based costing actually came to solve. Because the traditional one is just after the number of labor hours, and that's all. So once you get your OER, you allocate, and that's all when it comes to traditional. But for activity-based costing, we take it down to why are we expending this cost? So just like the setup that you mentioned. So we are incurring setup costs simply because we are setting the number of setups that we have is increasing. So in that case, you allocate based on setups. You understand? So that is just it. And the same way you don't use setup in traditional. So the same way you cannot use your OER in ABC. So it goes both ways. So I think I believe I've been able to answer your question. I don't see any other hand up.
There's still a little confusion, sir.
Yeah?
I said there's still a little confusion.
What's that?
Okay. I said that for traditional method, are we still going to calculate the number of batches per unit per the way we had?
That's exactly what I just said. You don't. The only thing you are calculating under OAR is your OAR. I mean, under traditional is your OAR. That's all you need. And how do you get your OAR? Total overhead. In fact, you are not to separate the overhead when you are dealing with traditional. You don't say, okay, this is a setup, this is maintenance, this is this. Just calculate all of them. You bring the total and then you divide by your total labor hours, or in some cases, your total machine hours. And that is your OAR. So once you get your OAR, you you allocate by multiplying it either by hours per unit or the total hours, and that's all. You are only concerned about the hours when it comes to traditional.
Okay.
It is until you get to ABC that you now start considering, oh, this one is allocated based on batch, this one is allocated based on number of setup, this one is allocated. You understand now?
Sir, please, I'm so sorry for dragging you back. I'm very, very sorry. Okay, this particular question that we just solved, can you help me do it the traditional way, just to understand fully? Assuming we are asked to calculate using the traditional, what will be the answer?
I told you. That's our first question.
Okay, so that first question solves it. Like if we are asked to get the traditional.
So, did you get the question A of the question?
Yes, I got the question. I got the answer. So is that all?
Yeah,
like
that's
using
all.
The traditional.
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
I'm not doing any
I
of that.
wanted to be something.
That's
all right. Thank you.
The traditional. That's why it doesn't come with much mark. I mean, it's just fugazi, just enjoy. All right, Amiola, your hand is still up. Do you still have any other thing to say? But Adeyinka.
Okay, sir. The question we solved in the class now. Which diet? Which year is that? Is it?
I don't think I have an idea which year, but I can check that for you later. Or I think you should have the combined questions from May 2014 to
Okay.
so in that case you can just search for the name of the company. I think XYZ. Just search for it to take it directly to the question.
All right. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
And there's a carbon copy of it. This last diet. They
Yeah,
repeated.
exactly. I saw it. Exactly. It's just some features that were just changed there.
Exactly. So,
Right. Thank you, sir.
so Adewale Abdul, is it Abdul or Abdul? Okay, somebody already responded. This is November 17, question 3. Yeah, Adewale, go ahead, please.
Please, can you help us attend
Huh?
on
Come
the
again.
class? I say, can you help
The
us
what?
attend the class on the platform? On the
Is it
WhatsApp.
me? Yeah, what do you say? What do you say I should send?
The
solution.
solution. Yes.
Oh, of course. I will drop it after the class.
Okay, thank you. God bless you.
All right. So yeah, I believe that's all now. So yeah, we can call it a class or a day. Okay. Bade Giwa Rashidat.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah. Based on the question that this other lady was asking, if we were given this type of question for the OAR, right, and we were told to allocate it, are we just going to, after getting the OAR, which was 12.34, are we just going to multiply it with the number of direct labor hours, like 2 and 4? Or how are we going to allocate it?
Exactly.
That's what we are going to do.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned
But then
if you were around when we did the question B, the question B said we should use the direct labor hourly rate to compute the overhead rate attributable to a unit. So I just said you multiply by the number of labor hours, which is actually 4 and 5, not 2 and 4.
Okay, sorry, 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So we don't need to take into consideration the per batch or something. That one is not our business if it's OAR.
Anything that goes outside labor hours or machine hour has nothing to do with traditional. There's a reason it is called traditional.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I thought I had somebody talking again. Okay. Manuel, I think the question will have to be sent to the group. I'm not sure I have for all of them, but it will be shared. Okay, so in the absence of any question, we'll call it we'll come to the end of the class. So on Tuesday, by God's grace, we will go into either variance analysis or capital budgeting. It depends. But as of now, it's most likely going
Thank you very much.
It's most likely going to be variance analysis.
So what about limiting factors, sir?
Limiting factor will be taken by the other tutor. I don't think I'm taking limiting factor, but I think my own part will be the relevant costing part.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So, as time goes by, I might still be doing it, but we'll just take them one at a time. I'm taking the ones that are most asked first. I think activity-based costing is the most asked question. If you check your question breakdown, then we'll have variance analysis. Then we can now have relevant costing. So that's why I'm taking them in the order of the most the frequent. The one item frequent. Then we can now go to the less frequent one later. So, all right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
And
good night. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
sir.
sir.
Good night.
Good night, sir. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.